All right, so we are going to add Mr. Dwight Vick, the OG. Welcome on, my friend. For those of you that don't know, Dwight Vick is the owner and founder of Victory Life. He is the host of the Victory Life podcast and the co-host of the Vick 757 show with his cousin, may have heard of him too, Michael Vick. Dwight, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. What's going on, man? I'm happy to be on with you guys, man.
I'm happy to be here. And also joining us is Kyle Bailey. Kyle is the host of the Kyle Bailey Show afternoons on WFNZ Charlotte. And he does Carolina Panthers game and has a podcast as well. Kyle, how we doing?
What's up, fellas? How are y'all?
I am excellent. As you all know, I am starving hungry. I'm actually going to take a quick bio break. So, Pete, I'm going to pass it to you for a little bit here.
Absolutely. I actually think that our boy Sam here talked to Dwight maybe about a year ago. Do you have a question for Dwight?
Dude, more than a year ago. It was so Billy Ray and I interviewed Dwight before the 2022 season, right before the opener. And one of the big questions we had was, all right, this is a rebuilding process, right? And what is going to be the sign for you of, okay, this program's headed in the right direction and they're feeling good about the future, they're doing a thing. And you said something that really surprised me and it stuck with me. You said they're going to take care of business against inferior opponents. They're going to beat teams in the beat. They're going to get their young guys in some playing time. They're going to be able to work on stuff. That was so important. Virginia Tech was missing that. Didn't get that so much last year, but this year the Hokies had 7 wins of 3 or more possessions. Dwight, what does that tell you about where this program is headed for 2024 in the future?
First of all, man, thanks for reminding me that. I forgot I said that. And also I gotta repay the favor and get you and Billy on my stuff, man, and also Pete as well. So shout out to you guys. So I'm gonna keep that in my back of my mind. But
anytime.
It just shows that Pride. I've been on Pride from day one, and it just shows that like he's that guy. Like he has a vision, and the team has an identity. And they kind of, I just watched Tucker on here, and Tucker kind of exemplifies that because he had points of examples of what Pride says and what they want to carry out as far as game planning. So to me, it's just a hardcore example. Like when I saw them smashing Syracuse, Boston College, not that Boston College was inferior, but they were a 6-win team when we beat them. But at the same time, I thought we were better. And it's just one of those things, man, where I felt like, even against Pitt this year, I mean, I don't take those wins lightly because to smash Pittsburgh like they did, and Lane Stadium looked like the Lane Stadium I played in the Lane Stadium after I left. And it's just like this looked like we had an identity. It just looked it was really great to see, and it came through on TV very well because it was too many times in previous seasons we were battling teams like, it'd be 17-10, and we're so much better than them. Like, what is the problem? And they just took care of business, and that was something I felt like made me believe that we were on the right track.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm getting Kyle back in here. I think we lost him for a second. Kyle, you're back, right?
Yep, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. My brother and his wife, my nephew has probably just entered the world in the last couple of minutes, so he was probably calling to let me know about that.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Hey, Kyle, I'll cheers to that for you real quick.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, right, we got Billy Ray back. We're all good to go now. And I'm looking at the two of you guys. And in fact, you guys had Dwight on your show a year ago. Kyle, before or right after the ODU game, you came on CFB Monday with me, and you were happy with the win, but you had indicated that you were very much at peace with the Hokies in terms of your expectations, where they currently stood. And I asked you about the Purdue game, and you're like, listen, man, I'm just trying to watch the game and enjoy. And that's all well and good. But after that Marshall game, did you start to panic a bit? Because people are feeling warm and fuzzy now, but back then, what were you thinking about this staff and the team?
I wouldn't say it was panic. It was more along the lines of it just didn't seem like much was improving. And more from my standpoint, it was just having grown up 10 minutes down the road from campus and seeing a lot of great football, watching Dwight before Dwight and I even knew each other as a kid. It was just you got to feel pretty quickly. If you've watched it long enough, you know what Virginia Tech football looks like on TV. And or in the stands or whatever the case may be. There's a brand, there's an identity, there's a culture, and you just weren't seeing much of that. And kudos to Brent Pry and to Chris Marv and to all those guys, for the adjustments they made. Obviously, the change at quarterback, but they really, in the span of a week or two, breathed life back into the program. And so I was pretty much still at peace all season long watching the team. It's year two of what we all kind of expected was going to be a significant rebuilding process, and it turned out to be a really good season. And I couldn't be happier for and prouder of the way the program responded this year. It was awesome to watch.
We're watching Michigan right now, kind of take apart Washington, and you see these stud offensive lines and defensive lines, and it has me thinking about our future. And if we want to continue this build and compete for conference titles, we need to see that offensive line and that defensive line come along. And Dwight, I'm going to talk to you because you're a former offensive lineman. You saw the way we played up front throughout the year. The kids and their strength really didn't change. So what goes into an improvement like that? Like, is it just a comfort in the system, your head finally syncing up with your feet, as Bud Foster used to say? What would you attribute the strides we made on the line this year to?
Well, I thought they played very well in space. I felt like they became more cohesive once the quarterback position got settled. Because I felt like once the quarterback position got settled, and you saw Tootin and Malachi get in the game, they had a rhythm and a rotation, and it felt like they were really in a great groove. And I feel like you have a bunch of big guys and a bunch of big offensive linemen, but if you don't really know what you're doing, you don't know your system or your scheme, and you're just really out there just being big for no reason. So
Oh my God.
a lot of ways, man, like I felt like the offensive line was just in a great position to make plays, and the RPOs. I also felt like the RPOs, along with Drones, the way he was in command of the offense. I tweeted early in the year, once Drones was named the starter, you could see the offense just begin to ascend, and they just look more comfortable. And you just got to, contrary to popular belief, offensive linemen are athletes. Like they want to talk
about it. Talk about it, Dwight.
Like at one time I was a very good athlete, man. Like one time, I used to be in really good shape, and I was strong. I could front squat and bench and all of that. But at the same time, I could block linebackers and safeties out in space. And I feel like Virginia Tech is starting to get that. I went back and watched that Military Bowl again when I got home after I got out my wet clothes, and I went and watched it, and I was like, yo, they are really moving people. Like they were getting to the second level and getting hats on hats, and it was just great to see, man. And being an offensive lineman, I mean, I haven't played in decades, but I still had that same chemistry and energy and that brotherhood with Todd Washington, Derek Smith, Jay Haygood, Bill Connolly. It doesn't matter. Like, even when I was a backup, everybody, it's like being part of a great rap group or a band. Like, everybody knows their role, and, no pun intended, but it makes for beautiful music when the game plan works together. You see them just playing as one, pad on pad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're watching Washington kind of struggle to get down the field here. I think Billy might have been calling for a flag on that one. But
that needs to be a flag.
But hopefully they can get a score here and make this thing competitive in the second half. If you guys are watching at home, make sure your volume is down on the TV just so we don't get any interference. But with all the guys coming back for 2024, the portal additions, the bowl win as Dwight watched in a soggy environment, there's been a lot of talk about culture. And Kyle, you worked in Blacksburg for a long time, over multiple staffs. Dwight, culture is kind of in your wheelhouse with the counseling, all the work you've done with young athletes, and even with the Monogram Club and trying to build out that culture with the former players. What do you think it says about Pry and what he's building that these guys came back to play at Tech, and that he was able to get them to play hard in what now most people consider an exhibition game in these bowl games? And Kyle, I ask you first, what do you think about what he's building at Tech and Coach Pry?
It's funny. Culture was one of the first things I was going to bring up too. I think Dwight knows this about me, but I grew up in Christiansburg. Frank Beamer's longtime executive assistant, Diana Clark, her son Brad is one of my closest friends in the world. So I grew up close to the stadium. I also grew up going to games with them from time to time. And so I got to hang out in Frank's office sometimes as a kid. And you just got to witness firsthand the family atmosphere that was the program. And again, Dwight as a player can speak a lot to that. And I remember talking to Coach Pry, I guess it was 2 years ago, maybe. The first interview he and I did together at ACC Media Days here in Charlotte. And I said, one of the things about your job now that I really learned about from Frank when I was a kid, but also fully understanding it the older I got was, that job was about coaching football. It was about keeping boosters happy and, all those sorts of things. But, that job in a place like Blacksburg in particular is about, stopping and talking to a fan at Walmart in Christiansburg because, it's just that kind of job. And you could tell right away, Coach Pry kind of smiled when I brought that up. And he was like, yes, exactly. And I knew right then and there that he got that part of the job. I know football. I had a good feeling that Brent Pry could recruit the state of Virginia. But I also felt really good after talking to him that he understood the job. And it took about a year and a half, obviously, something like that. But that culture finally started to reveal itself. And I think you saw that culture carry them to the end of the season the way that it did.
Yeah, Dwight, and I'll ask you now kind of the same question. Like, do you you've been in bowl games. Like, what is it like going into that week? There's a lot of distractions. You're trying to have fun. And Pry has even talked about that. Like, I want these kids to have fun. But to get them to take the game seriously, what does that take from a coach and a staff?
Oh, man, your staff, I kept telling people when you're building, because I feel like it's a build, not a rebuild. I feel like he's building a program. I've been consistent in saying that. And I feel like if you look at it, the coaching staff, what I was a part of was a brotherhood with my teammates, but you saw a brotherhood with the coaches. You saw Grimes, Grantham, Stein Spring, Gentry, Beamer, Coach Wiles, everybody they hung out. They ate dinner together. They roasted each other. And then you saw the same thing this year and last year, especially this year, where, they're hugging on the sideline. JC and those guys, I text Pearson a lot. Pilo's there. A lot of the guys, Xavier, DB, you have a good mix of guys, young coaches, and even guys that played there that know what it's like to be in Blacksburg and also be part of that culture. So you see that even when they were really looking bad early in the season, they never really felt like it was a lost cause because they really believed in each other. And when you have a brotherhood and a chemistry like that, you're going to fight together. And bowl games, man, to your question, Pete, bowl games can be crazy, bro, if I'm keeping it real with everybody. Like, I seen some guys get sent home like the first night. You see guys that you can tell that have never really been in places like Miami. I played in the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, 2 Gator Bowls, and the Music City Bowl. So you have a great time. You get to see kind of the future of the program too, because the young guys get a little bit more reps. So it's just one of those things, man, where it's just great to be a part of. Bowl games are historic, especially when you win. It almost puts a bow on that great week. Or when I was playing, we went down there like for a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. I mean, my stuff was like crazy. Like the stuff we did back then, I'm glad they don't do it now, man. Like, I remember we were playing the Orange Bowl and Beamer was crazy, man. Beamer had us going full pads. It was 100 degrees outside. But we did
Pardon me, Dwight, I was doing the touchdown motion because I saw you glancing over at the screen at one point. We finally have a touchdown from Washington.
I saw Billy. And I looked. I was like, yo.
No, but that's funny. You're talking about the bowl games and the good times and stuff, and we can get some of this from Bill too. But like that 98 team, we talked about with Bill Roth earlier. Let's go back to that team real quick here while we have a second. Like that team was pretty stacked. Like that team really could have done some damage. They had, what was it? The ugly loss to Temple. Is that right?
Oh, you're trying to make me.
I'm sorry. No, it's a good story because I wanted to ask you about like when you have those tough losses and those tough moments and what is a good season, instead of it turning sour like it did in 2003 for the VT team. How do you turn that around after like a team that is more talented than the team they lose to? Yeah. How does the team rally from something like that?
It's funny, man. At the end of that bowl game against Alabama, we beat them. And obviously, it wasn't a save in Alabama, but we beat them 38-7, which is still their worst bowl game loss. And Beamer had a tradition, back then where the seniors or the captains kind of said their farewell to the team. And I remember I told the team that they were going to run the table the next year. And I knew it. I kind of saw it building because that year we had 3 losses. Temple, to this day, is considered one of the worst college football upsets in the history of the game because we were ranked 14th in the nation. We lost at home. We were up 17. And the thing that was crazy about it is everybody above us ranked lost. So we win that game. We go up to the top 5, top 8. And then we lost to Syracuse. And we win that game. We go to the Orange Bowl and we play Florida. We're up 21-7 or 2 or something like that. I think they got a safety. That's the game where Jared Ferguson had a 77-yard run with one shoe on. And then we were up against UVA 29-7. But you got to understand, you had a young Corey Moore, a young John Engelberger. Mike, my cousin, was the backup. Al Clark was banged up all year, but he was a warrior. And then you had Sharon Stiff, Lamont Pegues, Lee Suggs was on the way. So you had help on the way, but it was the perfect storm the following year because the entire D-line, along with Chris Cyrus and all those guys that were in the 2 deep, the O-line and D-line were all great. They only lost 2 guys from the O-line. That was Derek Smith and myself. And then you had Keith Short and those guys come back. So it was the perfect storm. But I also want to give Tucker Holloway his props. He said something, which I think I say this every year on Twitter or Twitter Spaces or when I'm featured on somebody's show, is leadership. I don't care what level you play at, man. If you don't have any leaders, you're just talking. I'm not throwing shade, even though I don't like them. The Miami Hurricanes have had years of talent, great teams, and they have no ACC championships since it expanded in 2004. They have one bowl game in multiple years, one bowl game win. Because I think a lot of times they don't have leaders. Those great Miami teams, when they talk about the U and all of that, yeah, they were loaded, but they also had great leaders. Tech's best teams have leaders, and they had leaders this year. Tucker Holloway talked about it, so props to him because I saw that right away. When we were looking bleak against Rutgers, and it was looking bad, and everybody was going crazy because our fan base is crazy, passionate. They were like, yo, what are we going to do? And the team stayed together, man, and we stayed together in 98. And in 99, man, it was from the moment they took on JMU, it was electric. It was historic, man. And I will always remember that year because it felt good because I love a good I told you so.
on that point, Dwight, I think what actually happened this year is I knew some guys had leader in them. And following the Purdue game specifically, when I came out and I watched the teams come back out after the thunderstorm and everything else, looking at the 2 sidelines, I looked at Purdue and they came out, they're jumping around, they're ready to go. I truly, truly believe you can sum it up to one thing if you want to. You can say, well, we changed our quarterback. Well, we did this. Well, we did that. I really think the beginning of the season was almost acted as like a trial by fire for the rest of the year. Like we really had to identify what our culture was, what our identity was on the offensive side of the ball. Coach Marv coming to his part and also identifying some of those older guys as being leaders. I truly believe like that happened in the middle of the season. You can't just look at this season and say, okay, the 2024 season was this. It really broke down into chapters. And I think those leaders really came into their spot later on in that season.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's funny that what Dwight just said about not letting it fall apart in 98 kind of led to 99. And I feel like this season could have gone that way. And Kyle, like we start to look forward to 2024. Everyone's pumped up. We got all these seniors coming back. It looks like we're going to have that leadership that we desire. And the way that the offensive line and everyone just kind of rallied as the season went forward. I need to ask you about your expectations for next year because you were playing it cool this year, but like, is the pressure back on a little bit to perform for Coach Pride next year to get to that 8-win mark and maybe beyond?
Oh yeah, definitely. The guys at the office been giving me a hard time. They're like, "You want to be insufferable so bad, don't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid to." But yeah, I think the possibilities there. Momentum's a real thing for sure. I was also laughing, by the way. Side note, speaking of the Military Bowl, I was watching the game. I was so happy. But I was also chuckling because it was – remember when Shane Beamer had to fill in for Frank and he won the Military Bowl several years ago?
2014, yeah.
I remember we sat in that – Dwight and I were sitting in the pavilion behind the end zone. He and I were supposed to drive up to Foxborough that night to go to a football game that – and Dwight gets the flu, and he's just sitting here hunched over in that pavilion. He's like, I don't think I can make the drive, bro. And so we
were going to see Brady. We were going to see Brady.
Yeah, we were going to see – it was the last game of the season. It was Patriots-Bills. My now wife then – kind of girlfriend was living up there, and we were going to make the road trip. I ended up going a week later to the first playoff game. I think it was that when they had, when the Deflategate run was, right?
Yeah.
So it was the week before they beat the Colts in the AFC title game. It was the Ravens game when Flacco and the Ravens went up like 3 touchdowns and the Patriots came back. Anyway, I was just laughing watching the Military Bowl because I got a lot of good bowl game memories, different from Dwight's, obviously. But that one, I'll never forget, Dwight hunched over like, bro, I don't think I can make the drive.
We did the pregame radio show. I mean,
yeah.
For the game. We
went up.
we
We were in the press box. Yeah,
yeah,
we did the press box and the pregame show and all that. It was a blast. But anyway, back to your point. Even that season though was like a little bit of a letdown because standards were still really, really high. Expectations were really, really high. And I want to see the program back there. I think the program belongs there. And so, as nervous as I might be, I guess, as a fan and alumnus, just somebody who loves Virginia Tech, I guess where I arrive is, hell yeah, expectations are a good thing. This is a program that should be expected to compete with just about everybody in the country every single year. There's not a damn thing wrong with expectations. So as far as I'm concerned, go win 10 games next year. I think they've got the talent and the coaching to do it. And I why not? Have you seen the schedule? Why not, man? Go win 10 games.
No, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I want to hear it. We always talk about on Hokie Twitter, it's the telling yourself lies, right? That's the Don V, like where we start lying before the season starts. But this team has so much potential with the way they finished the year. And I thought, even though Tulane lost their coach, some of their players opted out, most notably their quarterback, but most of their defensive players did play. And that performance we put on when they knew we wanted to run the football, I still feel like was super impressive. So I hope so.
Absolutely.
I think 8 is a number we have to get to. And Dwight, like, do you feel that same way? Like, do you think that this team is, hey, let's take it up a notch. Like, we can get to 8, 9, 10.
I agree. And here's the thing, man. Like, I don't have a favorite. Billy knows this. I've been on the Suns a few times. I don't have a favorite college and pro team. I mean, pro basketball, NFL or NBA team. But I have, I love Virginia Tech. I mean, and the thing about it is that I emotionally invest in them. So, like, when they lose, food doesn't taste the same. My house doesn't look the same. I don't like going out to the supermarket because I want to rock my Tech stuff. But when Tech is in a groove and they're playing great, it just feels right for me. I mean, it's bigger than me, but I feel like I'm part of something so special. Like being in the Music City Bowl and it is pouring down. I'm telling you, everything on me was soaked. Pause. And the thing about it is that everybody around me, it was like a Tech home game. They're tailgating, they're jumping off the ledges, and people are just excited, and they're yelling in the concessions, "Go, the Hokies, and let's go," and all of that. I feel like everything is there for the taking for Virginia Tech. You got a culture there. They believe it. Tucker Holloway and those guys, the way they talk when you see them. Great interview by you guys, by the way, too. With
yeah, it was good.
That was a great interview. I talked to Kevin, his dad, during halftime, and then I talked to him at Twitter Space with those guys, Boundary Corner. I feel like Tech has a very favorable schedule. When I say favorable, not easy wins, but games that they should be able to be in and win, or possibly, steal a game. I mean, I feel like Carolina has lost some momentum, especially when they lost Dre Bly. And then, their quarterback, who's a special player, is leaving. Miami, I told y'all a few minutes ago, they're always trying to figure things out. UVA, we seem to own them mentally. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen, but I think we're ahead of them right now. And I mean, again, Georgia Tech is, they're tough. They got a little buzz, but no pun intended. But I feel like Tech can make a run. I mean, for me, I feel like the ceiling right now is between 8 and 10 wins. I feel like definitely 8. And I feel like if they can, really get this offense, everyone stays healthy. I mean, keep in mind, Jennings comes back. So we'll see.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we're going to get to see the full story with Jennings, with a quarterback that we trust and believe in. Mm-hmm. And we went out and we addressed some of our problems in the portal on the defensive line because we have so many guys walking out the door. And that's something we're going to talk about with Josh Fuga next quarter. But
Pete, real quick, one thing I want to mention about the schedule. This might sound submissive is the wrong word, but I do think that the order of the games that are played next year are so crucial. Virginia Tech is going to have to travel to Syracuse. They're going to have to travel to Miami. They're going to have to travel to Stanford. I'm very interested to see how the ACC is going to break that up. Now, look, obviously, I'm biased to Virginia Tech, so I don't know what some of those other schedules are. That is a ton of travel for a team in one season. So I'm really interested. Where are they going to put the Clemson game? Where is the Miami game going to be? I'm hoping that we really space out these. It's a cross-country flight. It's going all the way up the coast, going all the way down the coast. So I'm very interested to see how those are all spaced apart.
Billy, to your point, can I just add to his point? I forgot about at Syracuse. We've only won there one time,
It's
And
not easy.
And when Mike went around the corner, I remember that game. I remember where I was at. And I went up there. I talked about the 98 season. We were killing McNabb. And Bud Foster calls the timeout as McNabb is dry heaving and throwing up. And he told the defense they were going to run that play. And he did the throwback play, and then they scored, and they went on to the Orange Bowl to play Florida. If Pryor can get a win at Syracuse, I'm not going to make them out to be that a legendary, iconic signature win. But for me,
it's a big game.
That's a big game because Syracuse has owned us in that dome. Some of the best teams in Tech history, including the Jim Druckenmiller team that went 10-1 that played Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. They only lost that year in the regular season was at Syracuse.
Dude, Dwight, I don't mean to interrupt you. I walked into the side studio today at work. My producer, this kid's a Duke fan, a Notre Dame fan. I have no idea why. This kid is watching the 96 UVA Tech game on YouTube. And I walk in, I'm like, why are you watching that? He goes, hey, it's Jim Druckenmiller. I was like, no, I know who it is. Why are you watching it? And to this point, I still don't know. He couldn't really explain to me why he was watching it. But anyway, I meant to tell you that because I was trying to spot you on the screen today. But the most random thing ahead of our conversation tonight, this kid's watching UVA. I think it was Tiki Barber's last game, wasn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the game when what you call a random down, Torian Gray.
Yeah.
He ran Tiki down. Same like when Jimmy Williams ran down the other UVA running back.
Well, it's funny you guys are just talking about the dome. It's one of me and Robbie's least favorite places, and there's a comment here about Alyssa and I are here for Robbie's journey. I think we got a lot of people on the screen here. We got to make sure everyone gets some voice time. But I was thinking back to the 2016 team, Fuente's first year. That team was excellent. We went into the dome as 19-point favorites.
Pete,
and guess what?
Pete.
I'm sorry.
I've never shared this. Davon Ellison was a kid that went to Don Bosco Prep. I had him, and he came down to Virginia Tech with Terrell Smith, Donovan Stewart, Rashawn Gary. By the way, my fault. Rashawn Gary didn't come to Virginia Tech. I clearly didn't do a good enough job recruiting him. But I said, yo, this dude is going to be a stud. He is going to play at the Power 5 level. And not saying names, I was told he was too slow and he could not compete at an ACC level. So I told Davon that. I was like, you really want to know? This is what they said about you. He goes to Syracuse, and in that game, I think he forced 2 fumbles and had a pick in that game against us. He went to Don Bosco Prep, teammate of Terrell Smith. Kid was just a football player. Little short, not very fast, but he was an absolute animal. I got to look up his box score from that game.
Well, the thing about Syracuse too right now, they're bringing in Kyle McCord, but also Fran Brown, who's the defensive backs coach at Georgia, that team is rolling right now. They're winning the offseason title right now. And I don't know if that'll come because I thought they were a pretty poor team this year and kind of had an inflated record. I mean, that happens when you play Western Michigan and Army and Colgate and those teams. But that's going to be a team that's hyped up. And if that game is in the first half of the season, it'll probably be sometime in October. If you look at Syracuse's schedule, that could be a team that's 5-1 and Texas headed up to the Carrier Dome. Like that's a
hold on. That's the thing. It's not the Carrier Dome anymore. So we actually luck out with that. It's the I think it's like the R&L Carriers.
It's some new name, but it's still a house of horrors, man.
They still need to blow it up. I mean that thing that needs to be destroyed.
The one thing about it, one great thing about it, even though I love the historical perspective, I always tell people, man, it's a new day, new generation. These guys, Drones and those guys don't know anything about it. They were, back then I had hair, so, you know what I'm saying? So, like, they don't know no better. They can go up there and be like, yo, let's take care, block a punt, return the punt for a touchdown, Tucker Holloway, and next thing you know, we're up 17-3, and the defense gets some – I'm kind of manifesting some positive thoughts.
Yeah, no, I hear that, Dwight, and it's funny because you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things in college football that don't make sense, and one of them is the fact that no matter when the teams and the coaches and the generations change – certain teams, when you play them, it's always the same. Like when we play Pitt, it has not changed. Like like sometimes there's a blowout. Yeah, we've been there. We won 28-0 a few years back. That was awesome. But like normally it's a rock fight and it's ugly and it's a pain in our butt. And that's just what is so great about college football is typically the games like remain the same. And I'm expecting that Syracuse game to be a stomach ache. That's what
I found that box score, by the way. Davon Ellison led Syracuse at safety with 10 tackles and pass breakup.
I remember that.
Played his tail off.
That's crazy. Well, listen, guys, it's halftime. We are going to say goodbye to you. We're going to start up another stream with some different hosts and everything in the third quarter. But Kyle and Dwight, thank you so much for being here and hanging out. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Big fans of what y'all do. Sons, you guys are one of the best followers on social media. So we appreciate you guys keeping us connected.
Appreciate it. We'll get you guys on. We got to do an home and home with both of y'all.
No doubt.
That's right.
Kyle, hold on, Pete. Kyle, respond to my text, please.
I know, bro. I'm sorry. I owe you a text. I've been at it since like 6:30 this morning. I owe you a text. I'm sorry.
Can I ask? Let me ask one more question at the buzzer, because these are two opinions that I really respect.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys have seen it on social media. Can I just get your bottled response to the Go Birds campaign that we've launched over here?
No.
Go Birds? What is that?
We were asked. Well, we did this exercise.
See, Kyle doesn't even know what it is.
We were like, let's come up with a new term that isn't Hokies, right? So we said, right? We leaned into Go Birds, which we understand is an Eagles phrase. But don't you think like walking into Lane Stadium saying Go Birds kind of fun, kind of cool?
Or if you're gonna say birds, why don't you say gobblers? Because at least that has something to it.
That's copyrighted. I can't put that on a shirt, but so is Go Birds, though. So
is gobblers still copyrighted?
Go Birds is funny, man.
Have we checked
if we were a bird of
funny,
flight,
right?
If we were a bird of flight, I might be able to get behind it. But because we're not a bird of flight, I don't know that I can get behind that. Although I do appreciate the creativity. It's kind of like here in Charlotte when there's a small faction of people here in Charlotte when they're talking about the Hornets, they'll say Go Bugs. And like 15% of people are okay with it. Everybody else despises it. So, it's not. It probably shouldn't become a thing. But
it's getting a bunch of no's and nevers here.
I know. I had to make sure people were still paying attention.
Hey, Bryce, good luck with that fast, bro. That sounds terrible.
It is so bad. It's so bad.
Billy. For the record, I thought you would ask me to call that. I'm in favor of only special team players wearing number 25. That's
okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm anti. There seems to be a segment of the fan base that's like, it's whack. We should do away with it. I'm like, it means a lot to the team to do it. Like that's like we don't need to do away with it. But we also don't need like a Michigan Gardner situation where a quarterback is wearing number 98. That's what we don't need.
I don't understand why people want to get rid of the 25. Like, is it bothering you? Is it causing you pain? Like, the players like it. The coaching staff likes it.
I think there's a perception that the players don't really get it. And I think we just put that to bed with the interview that we just did. The players care more about it. I think it's in gospel now. We're good.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I like that. Yeah.
All right. We'll say goodbye to these fellas. Thank you. We will be back at the start of the third quarter with some more guests. All right. Later, fellas.